Well, I'm glad I noticed that it wasn't recording.
Yeah, that's true. Although maybe we should start recording the podcast in MIDI. It would be easier to edit.
Right? If someone says something wrong, you can just like drag the words around.
Drag the words around. Yeah, exactly. We had an unexpectedly really fun weekend.
Yeah. Who would have thought it would be so fun for gigs to get canceled?
Yeah, it was looking, I would say Monday, it looked like at least I had a gig Friday and Saturday, and you had a gig Friday and Sunday. Mm-hmm. And then by kind of midweek, we had...
all I had was the gig on Sunday.
Yeah, so we had Friday and Saturday open, and we got to do fun stuff.
I did not realize how much time a gig takes. We had so much time.
It takes up a lot of time. But that's the joke. Like, there's two things musicians hate: having gigs and not having gigs.
Right.
So you kind of win either way if you look at it right. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Here we go.
So what did we do this weekend?
Well,
we went to the museum. We went to the wrong museum.
And then the right museum. We didn't only go to the wrong museum.
Yeah. So there's this display, or this exhibition, not display, at the Denver Art Museum called Biophilia. And it's displays of art that resonate with nature, reflect on nature.
Inspired by, yeah.
It's gorgeous. And I've been wanting to go, so I got tickets. And then we went to the Denver Museum of Science and Nature instead.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking nature.
And the first person, we went through the line that said, if you have tickets, go this way. And the guy looked at the tickets and was like, I don't know, I think you have to go over to that line. And then we went over to that line and they were like, well, this is for the wrong museum.
But we did get a good picture of me in front of a dinosaur while we were there.
And then we just, it was no big deal. It was just 15 minutes away. And we went to the Wright Museum. And gosh, what a cool display. I mean, there was just some gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. And
I took so many pictures. It wasn't even that big of an exhibition, but it was just inspiring. What was your favorite piece? Do you remember?
I think my favorite piece was that shelf thing.
The wood shelf that was made of...
Yeah.
It was made of...
Sycamore.
Oh, sycamore...
laminate.
Right.
Veneer.
Right.
And then resin. Mm-hmm. But it was made to look... It was so flowy, like a plant or something, but it was this big wooden...
Yeah,
it kind of like came up from the floor and then it spread out and then it like sort of attached to the wall, so it would have been like maybe like this 8-foot little shelf.
Right. And when you describe it, you might think that it's a sycamore, a veneer, like, and then resin on top, but the veneers were laid perpendicular to the surface of the table, so you were seeing the edges of multiple layers of veneer.
So it had grain.
Yeah, it was like the vein of the wood.
It just looked incredibly alive.
Yeah, it really did.
Like a blade of grass or something.
Yes.
But it was big and heavy, and everything was sort of like that. It was like stuff that was, there was the one guy who he did these. There was these ceramic. I mean, they weren't plates, but they were a lot like these flat ceramic discs. Mm-hmm. And they had the texture of seawater. Mm-hmm. With the little ripples and stuff. And then he had colored them the exact color of all these different oceans all over the world. Mm-hmm. So there were just this wall display of like 16 of these things, and they were all different
shades of like
seawater,
actual colors of seawater, and you could just, I would look at each one and I would feel like the depth and of the water and the weather that was going and the light that was different. It was just.
Somehow there was so much movement to it.
Gosh,
Obviously, it was static because it was like a sculpture, but it was like each one had the way the light was glinting off of it. It looked like almost like you were like looking over the side of a boat.
Yes, exactly.
Down at the water and just so many things like that.
Yeah. So that's
that's one of the things we did for fun because we had time.
Yes.
Yeah, and then, gosh, what do we do Friday instead of go to a gig? Which, by the way, we're not throwing anybody under the bus at all. Sometimes gigs just fall through last minute, and for a number of reasons, and that's a part of gigging life. That occasionally, my gig Saturday, we thought we had one gig and we were free, but then that fell through like several weeks ago, but then we'd already blocked out the date
Oh, so you just
for
weren't
Half
sure.
Zen. And then coincidentally, somebody else came along and was like, hey, can you do this date? Totally different
Oh.
gig.
Oh.
And then, oddly enough, that one fell through and was like,
Yeah.
it's not actually going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, they couldn't pull a full night together. So, anyway, yeah, it was, it's just a part of gigging life. I guess if we're going to talk music business for a second, usually what you would negotiate, you might not get this being like an original band playing in a club and this and that and the other thing, but certainly for commercial type, bands that are getting paid, you would usually have what's called a kill fee or a cancellation fee, where if you're in a certain number of days before the gig, you get paid at least something because you did keep the date on the calendar, and it's kind of unfair to bands to just like, hey, last minute.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
mean, that's, any service provider of any sort.
Right. If you're,
just fair,
it's very
yeah.
much like you gotta, we have a 24-hour cancellation or 48-hour cancellation, and that is something, that's just part of the business, part of any
and
service.
we got a kill fee on this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, we
so
got one. Yeah.
It was fine.
And so we did that, and then gosh, Saturday night we went to a gong bath.
A gong bath. It was my first ever gong bath.
Right.
And yours.
Right.
And you didn't actually have a gong bath.
I did not. Well, we got to the place.
Yep.
And you know what the big thing was? I could tell they weren't going to play any songs I knew. I complained about this with the singing bowl thing. And he was kind of doing the introduction. And I'm like, this guy's probably going to do all originals from now. And I was like, you know what I mean?
So that's what it was about.
I can't, like if I don't know any of the songs,
How are you going to rock out?
yeah, how am I going to rock out? I just felt like this guy's going to just hit us with like 12 originals in a row. You know what I mean?
You mean you don't listen to gong songs all the time?
I do, and that's my point. I was,
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, if he just would have played some hits, you'd been down for it.
and usually you would expect in those kind of healing things, they're going to throw in some of the hits. Brong, thing.
All right, seriously.
Yeah, sorry. I went on too long for how good of a joke that was. Anyway.
It was an experience. So I booked it because we had a pretty crazy great experience with singing bowls in a carved sandstone cave in New Mexico one time.
Right.
That took us just completely off guard. We wanted to see the caves that had been carved out by hand by this guy.
Right.
And it just happened that like for a few extra bucks you could get a singing bowl concert, and I never had one before. I never heard. I mean, I have a singing bowl, but I'd never been to a singing bowl concert.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, why don't we just throw that in? And so we experienced it, and we both walked out of there feeling changed,
Yeah.
feeling like what just happened to us.
Yeah.
It was just unbelievable. We put like for a day, we both just kept looking at each other like, what is going on?
It was transporting. Like it
Yeah.
was just one of those things that just puts you in a totally different. Haven't felt that before.
Or since.
Yeah, or
honestly.
since.
And we've been to a couple of other singing bowl concerts, but they haven't been quite to our taste.
And they're always
you know.
good. It's not like
Yeah.
you don't. We talked
But we
about it on
haven't
a podcast. That was the problem with the last singing bowl one is they didn't play any of the hits. Bing, bing, bong, bing. None of them.
Right.
I'm probably not saying that right, but the gong thing, and I did not actually attend the concert. I went with you and then bailed last minute.
Yeah.
There's a lot of incense down there. But they had a kind of a cool contraption. It was a vibrating pad,
It's a resonating floor.
resonating floor that you like lay down on, and it's like a slightly raised floor. And then he's got a couple microphones that are then feeding the pad, so the sound is going into the resonating, vibrating floor.
Yeah, he was describing the microphones are picking up the mic or the gong sounds, and then they're going into a transducer, which I guess is amplifying,
Yeah, right.
like physically amplifying the sound, or is there a speaker under there, or
Well, a transducer is something that takes something from one kind of energy into another kind of energy.
Okay.
So like a speaker is a transducer because it takes electrical energy and turns it into energy in the air, kinetic energy in the air. So in this case, you were basically essentially lying on a speaker. It was like
Okay.
you were lying on a subwoofer. So it was
Yeah.
taking that sound going into the mic and then turning that into vibrations on this. So you were basically laying on a huge subwoofer.
And I could really feel it.
Yeah,
It's pretty
it
amazing.
sounded like it was really intense.
Yeah, so the experience was pretty cool. I was shocked by the wide variety of frequencies that a gong can make
Right.
and do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just that huge piece of metal has so many different ways it can vibrate in resonance at the same time. So everything from as high as what sounded like whale noises,
Yeah, the squeaky
know,
ones. Yeah. Yeah.
like that kind of thing, but with tons of reverb on it because it does that and then it reverbs for like 5 seconds.
Off of itself, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all the way down to literally a couple of them were subsonic. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't hear it with my ears, but I could
you were
feel the floor vibrating.
And that probably is the real benefit of that resonating floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the low stuff. So it was kind of like the sound of what I imagine the sound of being in space in a movie. Like of course it's quiet.
Right,
There's
right.
nothing, you don't hear anything in space because there's no air.
Yeah.
But it's like the movie version of what space sounds
Right,
like.
right. Yeah. Yeah, like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just listened and experienced. I didn't like have any intention. I didn't have like anything I needed to feel like I needed to heal or meditate on or do any energy
Right,
work or
right.
anything. I just kind of laid there and experienced it, and my mind drifted a little bit. I think I got close to a little bit asleep a couple times because I had like sleepy, like random thoughts.
Yeah, you said your
random
thoughts were
images kind of,
getting yeah. Yeah.
And it was everything from very quiet to very, very loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
Yeah, that's
Pretty amazing.
yeah. Those things are really fun, and you know, it's like so many things. Well, it's like the sake place we went to.
Oh yeah.
Earlier in the week, we were both getting off work. Thursday. Well,
Yeah.
you went
Yeah.
to the EOA thing, and I was getting
Yeah.
off work, and so we just went to. There's a sake distillery.
Yeah.
Right around the corner from where we work and where the EOA thing is. And they make all these different flavored sakes. And, you know, we ordered some of the more flavored ones,
Yeah.
and it wasn't great. But, and
Too flavorful.
a little too flavorful, and I'm sure the more normal ones were probably
They were
great.
good. We had one
We
normal
had
one,
one
right.
that was more. It was like sparkling, and it was
Yeah.
it was actually really good. Colorado Sake Company, highly recommended. I mean, the vibe was great. It was a
Oh
wonderful
yeah, they
place
had
to
a
just
jazz quartet playing.
jazz
right?
quartet
Yeah.
playing, and they had the origami and the
Hanging from the roof,
Yeah,
the
it was just it was a very cool place. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about new experiences is whether you like it or not, it's great to just know what it's like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 100% how I look at new stuff, and as I say a million times, so often I would rather do something new
Yeah.
and take the risk on maybe I didn't really like that. Just to, well, now I know what it's like. And even if I'm like, well, never doing that again, like at least I know, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I love that about you.
Yeah, it makes doing stuff way more fun. So the gong bath was great. And
For me.
For you.
You got to listen.
I got to listen to, so you're having a nice spiritual experience in a very nice, finished, soundproof basement. Greg has obviously put a ton of time into his room and dialing all that in. I was going to make a microphone joke because I, of course, noticed the model of microphone that he had stuffed mics with, and
Of course.
I don't really like the Rode NT1A very much, so that's the other reason I was like, probably no, just kidding. And you were having that spiritual experience, and I was sitting in a very nice little garden area, but his neighbors were drunkenly arguing for like the entire hour. It was pretty.
Do you care to?
It was. It almost made me feel at home because it was definitely like drunk redneck beer arguing. Like
I won't make you repeat it, but it you repeated some for me, and it was convincing.
I can do the accent really well. I've just heard it. I grew up, I mean, my family's not like that, but, you grew up,
Yeah.
I grew up in the South, like, yeah, there's lots of, just, well, I'm not the one who... And, like, lots of the guys yelling, and the wife is just, there's some mumbling, and then, And then what's so funny, what I was saying is so funny about those like, drunken argument things, is that they'll go from, like, every once in a while, you'll get a rational string of sentences, and then it'll jump right back into, well, I'll tell you, Renee, if you're not feeling better, you need to go back to those doctors, and you need to tell them how you're feeling. Because if you're not telling them how you're feeling, there is just no way that they're going to know how to help you. And they can help you if you just let them know what's going on. Mama. Well, let them listen. You go over to the neighbors and you tell them to close the windows if it bothers them. Just like from and then 15 more minutes of that, and then 3 very rational sentences. Mumble. Well, fuck you, Renee.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom.
You're too good at that.
It's just like... I've heard it hundreds of times. You know what I mean? It's not like... it's just... And, maybe they're not even really that mad. It's just... Maybe they're clearly how they entertain themselves or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, it was pretty fun. And then Sunday, you, of course, had a gig. How was the gig?
Oh, it was great. It was
Yeah.
it was another Journey church gig. Pretty standard stuff by this point. Met a new drummer and a new guitar player, and they both work for Mannequin. So we had a lot of friends in common. Andre Dubois, I think.
I know that name at least. I've never met him.
I think I'm getting his name slightly wrong, but he's the drummer. Super nice guy.
Yeah.
Super prepared. Really did his homework. Not that people really flake on this stuff, but and then guitar player Adam Sanders. I'm wrong. That's not it. I've heard his name before. Anyway, we know Greg Kiddo in common. We know Ryan Skiles in common.
Oh, great.
And Zoe, the bass player.
Yeah, I was forgetting about Zoe.
It's fun hanging out with them. Yeah. I mean, I made a few mistakes due to having spent more time on the 4 string recently. So I made a few mistakes that were exactly a fourth off.
Right.
But, fixed them pretty quick. So,
Yeah, we were talking about that's the hardest to hear and correct because it's a copacetic interval. It's not the right note, but it's not necessarily a dissonant note.
Right.
So if you're one note off, you go oh, clearly, whoops.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can.
Your fourth one, you're like, who's screwing up? Oh, it's me.
It occasionally happens to me where you're just you're the 4th or 5th off and you're like something isn't right, but it's not terrible, but oh, it's me. Whoops. Yeah, and that's such a funny thing. And then so that gig was great, and then we went to Tacos I.
Yeah.
Which we have recommended, and Cody said he went on our recommendation.
Yeah,
took his
so
family.
good. We got some business for Tacos I.
Yeah, not that they need it. That place is
I know.
Slammed. We were in there at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, and they were just.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
They probably, they do mostly takeout because they have 8 chairs in the whole place, but they probably did 20 or 30 orders when we were in there. It was just Anyway, Tacos I.
Excellent.
Excellent. And then we went to Nieces to see Caitlin Clickman, who is a Cody Qualls, I would say, super fan, and I would say just a Colorado music in general super fan.
Yeah.
I mean...
She shows up.
She shows up. She sort of knows everybody. Hazel and, all these people.
Does she?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's because she goes to everybody's thing. And I am actually producing a Christmas album with her right now, which I think I've mentioned. It's pretty exciting. Some of this stuff is going to be really traditional in terms of this is just a piano and vocal.
I think that's going to sound great on her voice.
Yeah. And then some of the other ones, we're putting some spins on some stuff.
Cool.
So we're doing Joy to the World with a little bit of a world music vibe. It's not, it's definitely, we're keeping it away from reggae, but it's got kind of a, upbeat different vibe. And there's a version of Hark the Herald Angels Sing that was just a bitch. Sorry, mom. Sorry, both moms. To crack. Because she wanted to do a version, Pentatonics, which is one of those a cappella groups like Faith. They do a version that's very jazzed up and very all this stuff, and she wanted to do a version that had that kind of feel, and she wanted it to have some of that churchy, kind of gospel-y feel. But we, of course, didn't want to just copy their version. And the plan, at least, is that Hazel and Coco are going to sing with her on that.
No way.
Yeah, for the album.
Wow.
So, but it was super hard to crack because it was like, how do we get some of these feels in without just copying exactly what they did? And it actually took us a couple sessions of working together, and I was getting really frustrated because I don't play piano well enough to keep up comping something, especially something gospel-y or whatever. I think I'm going to get Pat Clark to play the piano on it, because Pat can, of course, do...
Oh, that's a great
Lee
idea.
Clark Allen. He's a gospel /
great
R&B
idea. Yeah.
artist. Anyway, we're just excited about the album because it's just got a bunch of different versions. I mean, they're not going to be wild or anything, but they're just,
But the show last night, I was so
Yeah.
proud of her.
Oh my gosh.
And it was great to see Dave Preston was on guitar
Yeah.
and Neil Hebert on bass, and Joe, I don't know his last name, on drums, but
I don't
great
I don't either,
bandmates.
but I've seen Joe a couple times and he's great.
Yeah.
And then Becca,
Right.
who directs Cody's choir, was playing piano. So Caitlin is really putting herself out there as her own solo artist. She's got one single out already called Be the Light that I produced. And then we're doing the Christmas album, and she did that show at Nieces, which was her Nieces debut.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
For her to get that night in that venue.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a really good, solid show. They did 2 sets. It was great to hear Dave, just to give Caitlin a break. Dave did a few numbers on lead vocal, which I always just think of him as such a guitar player. I forget that he also sings very well.
Yeah.
And he did a couple duets with her. And I don't know if we've ever talked about Dave
Probably not.
Preston. We may not
Because
have.
we haven't done anything with him probably since we started the podcast.
For sure. I don't
run
know if
into
I've seen him
sometimes.
since he's one of those guys I see every 3 years or something.
I've seen him at church a couple times.
Because he does do those gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. He might be my pick for best guitar player in Colorado. Like, I say it all the time. I'm not embarrassed to say it. I say it to Dave.
You said it to Dave.
I did
he
say
was
it
touched.
to Dave. At the end of the day, best is so subjective because everybody's so different. Everybody has some different things. And there's Joe Shull and, of course, Josh Blackburn and, Steve. And there's tons of guys. And everybody's different. Everybody has their thing. But, like, man, Dave is one of those guys who just never does anything that you question. You know what I mean?
That's the way I feel about you, though. I've always told you that.
Well, maybe that's why I like his playing.
Maybe that's why I never thought I wanted guitar in any of my songs, because like guitarists often do things that don't fit.
It is absolutely true. That is the vast majority of guitar players will mostly do stuff that you're like, what? Like, that doesn't fit at all, or like you're kind of even sometimes playing like out of genre. Like that just doesn't even.
But you always say that I never hear you or notice you play, and I always point out that that's exactly what I love about you playing.
Well, that's a nice thing to say. And maybe that's why I like Dave's playing so much.
Yeah.
He's a real tuck it in kind of guy,
Yeah.
where you're just like, if you're not really paying attention.
Yeah, the song is just better.
That's just better.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Not like showy or...
Which is one of the things I love so much that I've kind of recognized that I love. I've been actually, because of a few records that I've done Jenna's thing, and I didn't do any of it on Eric's thing. But I've been playing more organ lately, which, like I said, I'm not a good keyboard player, but a lot of organ parts are like 2-finger parts and stuff. You're not playing big chords. You're just kind of doing a note or two over the top, or you're kind of just way up high outlining some stuff. And man, I love those parts that you don't notice that they're there, but if you mute it, you're like, wait, what changed? Something
Yeah.
changed. Something's not as good anymore.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what that little thing was.
Right.
But it's like making it better, and you just like, when you turn it off, you're like, then you hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, but it was great. Man, Caitlin, great show, great night. And
And it was good to hang out with Cody and Judy.
yeah, and
too.
we're hanging out with Cody and Judy. And it's always weird being at Nieces and not playing. Like,
I know, because we play there so much.
we play there so much, and we go there sometimes and see people,
Yeah.
but it's not our closest venue to go see
Yeah.
people. So we don't do it all the time. So it always feels weird, like being like sitting out in front and being like,
This is what it looks like from the other side.
yeah, or sort of like I feel like I need to be doing something.
Oh,
You know what
I
I
see.
mean? Because I'm usually there working. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we just had a great, super relaxing week. Any takeaways? We can start landing this.
Oh
plane.
yeah, let's land it.
You have been
I don't
over
have...
the top, soaked up in the big software change
Yes.
for the scheduling thing.
I can barely think of anything else. But at the same time, we had our quarterly
Right.
priority setting meeting this morning. So, life moves on, even though we're changing the software. Yeah, I keep telling people it's like changing the engine out of the car while you're driving down the highway.
That's a great analogy. That's good, man.
Yeah. So,
You know what I forgot that you did too was you did the IVTOM masterclass
oh my gosh,
presentation.
that's right.
That's how
what I
much
did.
has been going on.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I did that. So I
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning, I presented to the International Voice Teachers of Mix, so to other voice teachers, basically a summary of our book. It was a masterclass in, what is it called? A show with a capital S.
It wound up being. Yeah, is it going?
Yeah,
There we go.
It still goes, yeah.
It wound up being, a summary of the main thesis and main kind of conclusion points of the book.
Yeah.
I mean, if you very condensed, it was an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You handled it great. It was a lot of info, but
Yeah.
obviously you were talking to pros too. So, they got it very quickly, but also you did a great job of moving through it at the right speed, I thought. But
Great, yeah. I tried to move, like, at a good pace, but not fast, if that makes sense.
yeah, exactly.
I
You want to,
let some beats land, let people look at the slides sometimes without saying anything.
and the slides were
Yeah.
really. We've said it before. We probably maybe even said it last week. I think you having done that gave us such great clarity, and then so many of the slides, to me, I think they go right in the book because there's such great
Yeah.
visuals
Yeah.
of exactly kind of
Yeah.
visually illustrating some of the ideas.
Yeah. So anyway, we were just landing the plane when we remembered I did that. My brain is just fried from the software transition right now.
Yeah.
I have to get back into it after this and just keep cranking.
Just keep cranking.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
migration is a big deal.
Yeah, I guess my only thing I had figured out, I was telling you, a weird guitar thing that I had never realized before, but I've been doing for the past 2 or 3 days, and my hands have been feeling great because I don't play guitar all the time or every day. But what I figured out that if I just spend 15, 20 minutes, maybe not even that, 10, whatever, just playing really fast and improving, but just kind of like playing like a jerk all over.
Yeah.
Like putting on a backing track or something so at least I'm playing in time, and then just going
Heedless.
just hammer on stuff, pick stuff, just not even really planned. Just man, that limbers me up so much to just do a little bit of that every day.
Do people know what heedless are?
Well, heedlas are when you go heedla, heedla, heedla. Yeah, they're guitar licks where you're just kind of doing the little pull off thing and you're just going heedla, heedla, heedla. But if I just kind of do heedlas or big scale runs, like legato, 3-note string scale runs, and just go and just like kind of play nonsense, but just make myself go fast for 5 or 10 minutes. And I don't play like that hardly ever. You know what I mean? Like that's not something I would do necessarily in a song. But man, my hands are feeling great.
Good.
Like it is such a limbering thing to just be like, what are we in F sharp minor? I'm just gonna play fast all over the place in F sharp minor, down here, up here, down here, up here, and like it just kind of like stretches everything out. And so that I think is gonna be, that might even be a bit of a game changer for me because it's so easy to fit into the schedule. It's not boring scale practice, even though I'm playing lots of scales, and man, it just like I need to be at least, I should probably start warming up doing that before shows. I should probably do any kind of warm up before shows because I never do. That's what the first 5 songs are for. Anyway, we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Once again, we will of course be back again next week. As always, we are sponsored by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye.